Moments of crisis in life and leadership are inevitable. The tough part is that when they happen, we don't always feel like we have the margin to properly deal with whatever is going on. But today's guest, Gustavo Santos, a wellness coach and management consultant, says that if we deny ourselves the space to dwell in crisis, we're doing ourselves a disservice and actually giving away our agency. And that if we don't have someone guiding us, it can be even more difficult. In today's episode, he teaches us that at the heart of moving through complex and chaotic situations with wisdom is the ability to assess, be honest about what we see, and have the courage to move toward life. And that moving in this way is an act of recovering our agency, of declaring that we are free, especially as we move through midlife and beyond. Gustavo, thanks for being here.
It's good to be here.
Listeners, I have really been looking forward to having Gustavo on the podcast. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, or just as a reminder, this podcast is called The Hidden Work of Leadership. And it is the whole idea, the whole premise of it is rooted in this data point from the Dupree Center's Flourishing Leaders Research Project that basically says some of the most important things we do as people, as humans, as sisters and brothers, as moms and dads, so on and so forth, and as leaders happens when other people aren't necessarily looking. It happens outside the limelight. And so this podcast is helping us kind of pull back the cover on some of that. We're talking to thought leaders, we're talking to business leaders, talking to people who lead in creative ways, the whole gambit. And this season's theme is wisdom, all right? The hidden work of leadership when wisdom is needed. And as my team and I were making sort of our guest list for this season and thinking about people who both were experts in wisdom and people who are acting as wise voices in today's increasingly complex times, my friend Gustavo was just a clear person that we wanted to have on. So, Gustavo, thanks. Thanks again for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me and calling me like a wise voice. Appreciate that.
I know. No pressure. No pressure. It's interesting because one of the places where you have been spouting wisdom
Mm,
is actually in your LinkedIn posts.
mm,
So for those of you who are listening, Gustavo Santos, you can find him on LinkedIn, management consultant, academic, wellness coach. If you see those adjectives, you've got the right guy. I will put his link in the show notes too. But I actually wanted to start by reading one of these posts that I
mm.
found to be really provocative and just letting you unpack it a bit more for our listeners. Is that okay if I read your own
Absolutely.
words to you? Okay,
Now,
good.
now I'm kind of concerned, but yeah, let's go. Let's go.
You can always be like, "No, that was a different Gustavo. That wasn't me. That wasn't me." Okay. So you write this. In coaching conversations, I've been noticing something.
Mm.
It's not the strategies or the breakthroughs that clients name first. It's not even the aha moments. They speak of presence and of being met without urgency, of being asked the kinds of questions that don't demand quick fixes, but opens up space. You go on to say, especially for high capacity people, those who are used to solving, performing, and creating containers for others, the nervous system's running is fueled by this question of what's next.
Huh.
And often we need a room, we need people to hold space for us. There's wisdom in, I'm adding some parentheses there,
Mhm.
in being in a space where nothing has to be proven. So, I mean, I read that and I was like, "Ooh, that hits deep." Can you just like help us know the headspace you were in or how you're seeing that in your
Mm.
work? Take us into that a bit more.
Yeah, I think that post in particular came from a series of conversations I had with people that I was consulting with. And we're talking about organizations and usually nonprofits, organizations that I help with strategy, operations, and whatever else they need. But it wasn't uncommon for me to have conversations where people would just start crying in the middle of the conversation.
Mm.
And for and then of course like that kind of stops you in your tracks. You just say, okay, what's going on here? Why is this person crying? And then you kind of immediately revisit what you just said just to see, okay, did I say anything wrong or anything?
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Yeah. But I realized that for some reason I was opening that space for them to be who they are and to inhabit or like dwell in that actual moment of crisis that we're going through in the organization, but as human beings as well. So I think in these conversations, what happened was, oh, there's a human being here that's tired. They're kind of exhausted. They're kind of having to perform all the friggin' time. And that's kind of, it's a burden. It becomes a burden. And they usually don't have where to lay that burden in a way.
Mm.
Like it's a place they need a place to be without having to perform or prove anything, as I said, particularly when they're leaders of these organizations. People usually say, you have heard this many, many times, I'm sure, that leadership is a kind of a solitary kind of place to be, but for many reasons. And I think one of the reasons is that you're always expected to perform
Mm.
well. And when you have like an organization that's in crisis, for example, you don't have that space. You have even less space actually.
Mm.
And I think I met people in that moment. I don't think there's necessarily anything special about me besides just being open enough to create that container. But they felt like they could, just kind of share and cry, and nothing really got resolved after that. I was just like, okay, it was actually the solution was a Kleenex, and that's it. Right. Okay, here's the Kleenex, and then let's keep talking. But I think the point was this um moment of opening up and being human, and that's what kind of has attracted me to that space more and more. And one last thing I want to say about this is that what people actually remember and they tell me about later is about that moment. It's
Mm.
not necessarily about the strategy we created together or how well the organization is going, but they usually send me emails and messages saying, "Well, thank you. Thank you for that time.
Mm.
Thank you for that moment. Thank you for those, maybe 10 or 15 minutes that we could talk about these things." So that's for me what's kind of more relevant and significant in the work I'm doing.
Mm. Okay, I wanna get a little bit more into the work you're doing and the journey you've been on to get here in a moment. But I just there's a few things that you just said that I think are really uh I think the words that are coming up for me are both provocative and then like healing at the same time. Like somehow provoking and somehow nurturing this healing place.
Mm,
You said you're creating space for leaders to dwell
mm,
in moments of crisis. Like
mhm,
that, it feels to me like it goes against like the script, right? Because it's
mm,
kind of like we're moving fast and like things are on
mhm,
fire. And,
uh-huh,
but what you said feels so wise. Like, how do we move forward if we're not dwelling in the
mm,
thing that is actually happening, right?
yeah.
I could, for both myself, and I wonder if for our listeners, we hear you say that and we start to wonder a little bit about, okay, wait a minute, how, if I don't have Gustavo right in front of me asking me these questions, how do I like dwell a little bit more in
Mm,
that which is not perfect? And how
mm,
do I create space for others to
mm,
dwell in that which might be really unpleasant
Oh.
for the sake of it being wise, being real life, being part of the journey. Like, how do we do that?
Hmm. Well, that's a great question. How long do we have?
As long
But
as you need.
I think what I have in mind is really a picture that's not. It's not for myself, of course. I have heard this before, um, and I'm very kind of sorry that I don't remember the exact kind of source of this, but there is a story, or at least like a concept in the First Nations, among the First Nations peoples, that like the buffalo, when they see a storm, they don't run from the storm because they know the storm's gonna catch them up, and then they're gonna be more wet because they're gonna be in the storm for longer. So what they do is they run against the storm,
Mm,
and then they go, and then it's like their speed and the storm's kind of speed, the kind of basic physics kind of thing. They pass through each other quicker, right?
mm.
Um, so
Wow.
I think that's the image I have in my mind. It's just like these things will happen to us. These moments of crisis, these bad days happen sometimes more often than we wanted, and relationships go sour. Everything happens to us in a rate that we cannot control. Now, if we deny them, and if we keep denying that they would happen or should have happened, we're not doing any good service to ourselves. So I would say dwelling means, okay, first you have to acknowledge that this is happening, and then you go into it, and then there's no way out. There's a way through. That's the only kind of possibility. So if you don't have someone with you guiding you in that moment, just trying to remember that could be helpful. Just like, okay, how do we go through this, and
Mm,
how do we just take that as a given, because it's going to
mm,
happen, but then you go through it in a more intentional way. And that could mean anything. It could mean really, depending on what we're talking about, it could be a relationship. It could be like um it could be a crisis for your organization. It could be, having to fire someone, which is like one of the worst things that leaders can do these days,
yeah. Yeah.
So it could be anything, but like, okay, how do we do this in the more intentional way possible?
Mm. I'm thinking about a time when you helped me do this, actually.
Uh,
So, you and Gustavo, you and I know, but others may not, that we teach together in a doctoral program. It's a Doctor of Global Leadership. It's for folks in the marketplace. It's at Fuller Seminary, the institution Dupree Center is housed. And, like you said, in the course of every work, sometimes it's just like not the most fun moment. And one of these moments was coming. And
mm,
just the details are not even relevant in this moment.
mhm,
But I was given given the structural organizational position I was in, I was gonna have to take some heat, and
mm,
you knew it,
mm,
and I felt anxious. I felt like, "Oh, I was the whatever animal runs the away from the storm, like, "No, I'm gonna outrun it, Gustavo, let's go, let's outrun it." And you were like the buffalo. You were like, "It's gonna be okay." You looked me in the eye, you said, "We're gonna like, this is gonna be okay. It's not gonna be fun,
mm,
and we're gonna do it. We're gonna go into it, and your
mm,
job is to go into it now." And
mm,
it was interesting because you didn't take it away from me. You didn't say, "I'm
mm,
gonna go into it for you." You
mhm,
didn't say, "Oh, this really isn't a big deal." You didn't minimize it, but you said, "You're gonna go into it, and I'm gonna be here with you."
uh-huh,
And so it's just so powerful, and one of the things that's really curious about this work that you found yourself in, Gustavo, is that you've had an interesting professional journey to get here,
cool.
right? You've been a business management consultant, you've had a career, and you still have a career in many ways in academia, but now you're going headfirst into you can correct me if I don't end up with the right terminology, but wellness coaching.
Mhm, mhm,
And so I would just love for you to describe why you've landed here and the current needs that you're sensing
mm,
as you've transitioned into the space.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, it's, in a way that's very, easy to tell because it is, like, my own, journey in a way, right? So, it is autobiographical in many ways. So, I started as a management consultant in Brazil, and I can remember very vividly these conversations I was having with VPs and CEOs and directors of, like, big companies in the corporate world, about their businesses and how, what's the sales, for next year, or what's our strategy, marketing strategy, or pricing, whatever. And I remember very vividly these conversations, particularly because I was kind of getting less and less interested in the business itself, but I was more interested
Mm,
in the people, right?
mm,
So directors and CEOs and VPs were kind of making decisions for their businesses and affecting thousands of people sometimes. But I could see that they were carrying something inside them that was not allowed to be shown or to be
mm,
exposed, right? I had I would say that's probably the most heartfelt conversation I ever had with someone in that environment. The conclusion was he looked me in the eye and he said, "Listen, I'm spinning so fast that if I stop now, I'll collapse."
mm,
I
mm,
remember that like to this day. It's more like than 15 years ago. And I remember that as it has like it's a landmark in my own trajectory as well. Just hearing that was at the same time very sad, and it was a flag for me. Okay, this is my direct supervisor saying something like that, and
yeah, wow.
what is it in there for me, right? Like what am I going to? So I decided to come to Canada and to do my master's. And then I entered like this new world of academia and studying marketplace theology and all that kind of stuff. And but then in academia, I also saw the same thing.
Mm,
It's a different currency. We're not talking about money and power in the same way, but you are talking about prestige and accolades and kind of credentials, right? Like it changes the currency, but the game is very similar. So,
huh,
and then you have like the same problem. You have people who are burning out because they're spinning so fast that they cannot stop, right? Um, uh, Particularly if you are coming from somehow a marginalized community or visible minority, or any kind of group that's not necessarily, the game is not set up for you, it gets even worse. So I started seeing that as well, and not only in other people, like, but in myself, right?
mm,
And then I think what really, I would say the last shift for me was when I did have a burnout episode. I did have, like, my body at some point just stopped functioning. It
mm,
was nothing wrong with my physiology, but like my body couldn't work. And I realized, okay, there's something it's not good, right? Like not working well, and it shouldn't be like this. So I started paying attention to my body more intentionally, and I think that's when my journey started with the wellness conversation. And I to be honest, I did not see that coming, at all. I think that was a surprise. Um, and the way I see this now is it's just one way. I don't think it's the way. I think it's one way, and it's the way that I am now exploring more with people, which is giving people the ability to recover their agency
mm,
over their bodies as a
mm,
way to signal that you're free.
mm.
You're free to be yourself.
Say that again. Recover agency
Yeah.
over their physical bodies
Yes.
in order to claim or signal, which
Mhm.
were you said one or the other,
Signal,
that
yeah.
signal that they are free. Okay, wow,
Yes.
that was powerful. Okay, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, yeah, because for me, I realized as a performer, because that's my nature, you give me the task, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna make it work, and, if people are into the Enneagram, if they read your book, I'm a number 3, like, an achiever by par excellence, like but the problem with that for me has been that because I'm so good at performing, people give me the task, I'm gonna do it. I am always playing by someone else's rules.
Mhm, mhm.
So I realized that while I'm performing, or the longer I I keep myself performing according to someone else's standards, I'm not free,
Mm. Wow.
you know? So when I started thinking, okay, I do want freedom, I do want in the second half of life, over 40, kind of thinking about what really means to be in this world. And I do want the freedom for me, particularly. And I think that's true for many people. Performing according to someone else's standards kind of takes away that freedom because you're still playing someone else's game, right?
I think we're having a therapy session now. I think we
You can ask
I'm
for a
over here
friend. You can ask for a
yeah.
friend.
Oh, man, okay, like, that is just very real. I do not identify as much with the performer type in terms of Enneagram personality types, except for that as a person working in an organization and a person who has, uh, leadership responsibilities, a person who own my own business.
Hmm.
There's a very real performance metric
Oh yeah.
there, and I just think a lot of our listeners are gonna resonate with your calling out
Hmm.
that if we've been in that mindset, we've been playing by someone else's rules, and I think that gets
Yeah.
complicated,
Hmm.
and it's like, "Wait a minute, like, I need a job, and I need to pay for
Yeah.
things, and we're living this kind of economy, at least at this point," and so there's just layers there. Um Okay, I wanna introduce a question here. This is a question that I've asked every guest this season,
Hmm.
and gotten all kinds of answers, just for the
Hmm.
record.
Hmm.
The theme of this season is the hidden work of leadership when wisdom is needed, and you've been talking so much about the hidden work of leadership right now.
Yeah.
I Can you tell us what you think wisdom is, and
Mm.
where do you think it comes from?
Mm. So, um, wisdom is a very big thing, whatever that is, right? I can try this to describe. I can describe what a wise person is. I think that's at least like to get at it like tangentially, not necessarily. I would say that a wise person for me is someone who's able to align themselves, not only particularly the actions, to the way that life is, the way the life actually is. And that means that it has like some pragmatism, or it's like a practical way of living, but at the same time, as opposed to theoretical, right? Like that's what I'm kind of
Yeah.
opposing
Mhm.
to. But at the same time, it has this movement towards a positive force in the world. It provides space. It fosters flourishing and good and better things. Or so it's like someone who's wise for me is someone who's able to look and assess and then has the courage to move towards this positive
Mm.
movement of life. That and where does it come from? I think it comes from, in my mind, there's like three steps. It's like one, you have to be able to assess the situation. and then the second step is like to be honest about it, because you can assess but then lie about it to yourself or to others,
Mm,
right? So you have to
mm,
be honest. Once you're honest with yourself, then you have to have the courage to
mm,
do. So I'll give you another kind of image. For me, as I'm thinking about this question, the image is like, imagine that you have a river in front of you, and it's kind of a big river. It's not a creek, it's like a river. And you're looking at it and you're deciding to jump or not, right? So the first thing you have to do is to assess, okay, how fast is this current? Where does it take me? Do I have help if I need, and all that kind of stuff. Then once you assess the situation, you have to be okay, honest about it, about the river, but like about your capabilities. Can I swim?
mm.
Do I have what I need, to jump in this river? And then once you assess the situation, you're honest with it, you have to be courageous enough to jump or to leave, but it's like the wisdom for me is the river. Yeah, I think,
Wow.
it's like it's passing by. It's something that's bigger than
Mm.
us, but you can join or not, and it's our decision. So yeah,
Huh.
I haven't really heard any of the others, but now I'm kind of thinking about the quality of my response to you. But
Don't doubt it for a second. I think, if listeners, if you're anything like me, I sort of found myself as Gustavo was narrating that on the bank of a
yeah.
real river that
Mm,
I know, and I looked down in the water, and I took in the clarity of the water and the depth and the pace of the movement and looked left and right. So you've given us an image, and I think also there's both freedom and agency, to use two
yeah,
of your words,
yeah,
and the river is moving whether we're in it or not, but
exactly.
in a good way. This
Hmm.
is not all about us,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that we do have the agency
Yeah.
to jump in and move
Hmm.
with that stream.
That's right.
Um, Gustavo, we've talked, and I think let's just go with this metaphor a little bit further. You and I are both in midlife. We've talked
Uh-huh.
about that. We've used that phrase.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, listeners, how, for right now, we'll define midlife as 40 plus. Okay. You can come at me and tell me why I've got the numbers wrong. I can't wait to hear that feedback. At the Dupree Center, we talk a lot about the thirds: first third, second third, and third third. So this feels
Mhm.
like second, third question right here.
Okay. Okay.
Um, as those of us in the second third, right? And I'm thinking about Richard Rohr's work here. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about, and I'll let you get into that if you want, but
Uh-huh.
as we look at the stream and we sort of maybe have even gotten out for a moment, gotten
Mhm.
out wherever the stream in the first half of life has taken us, and
Okay.
we step out on the shore with a little more agency going
Uh,
forward. I I know that some of your work is taking you into these midlife spaces. Can you
mhm.
just give us a bit of like your sense of hope or
Mm.
wish for those of us who find ourselves in the second third of life and
Uh-huh.
or leadership right now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think my hope is that people are able to reclaim that agency that we've been talking about, and find that freedom, because now you do have a little bit more of wisdom. You know, you have lived a life that's probably very full, and you have made decisions, and you have chosen paths, and you have you have learned about the things that you like and the things you don't like. So the options in front of you are now more limited, of course, more constrained by time and by options, but at the same time you have a better sense of who you are as well. So I would say that my hope is that you are able to claim that and make a good life.
Mm,
And that means finding your own standards of success. I think that's part of the the up uphill battle that I see myself and others right now, is trying to define success that's one size fits all is not healthy for anybody, because you keep trying to fit in, you keep trying to find your own space in that definition of success, right? And I think that's not healthy for us. So what I'm hoping for professionals and the work I'm trying to do is really kind of giving people that space to think about it and kind of decide for themselves what success looks like for me, for you, for like individuals that have full lives and have like responsibilities and all that. But I do believe that there's space to make adjustments in our lives
Mm,
that gives us this version of success that it's fulfilling. And it's not generic advice, it's not, bland information out there, but it does make sense for who you are.
mm, mm. Yeah, the word that's coming to my mind, it's like a word I learned a few years ago, so let me just give that
Yeah,
caveat,
that's a
is capacious. You
yeah.
you just are so, like, you hold so much space. I feel like my own nervous system, like I can feel the regulation of my breathing even when we talk. I've experienced that in other people. I do think you show up as uniquely present and attentive and wise. And one of the things I'd love to just like are for our listeners to hear is, as you've probably in some ways always been that person and have also grown into this version of yourself, who has informed your
Hmm.
own thinking and growth the most?
Hmm. Wow. Okay, I have, just to make this a little bit, more palatable to your listeners. I would say I have like a few groups of people, and I can give you a few names in each group. Okay, does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so I think the first group I have in mind is everyday people. I've always been attentive to people and everyday lives, and of course, you don't know my parents, but and I won't give their names here so people can kind of reach out to them. But I should say they are the ones that like have informed me and in a way taught me how to be attentive in real life. So everyday people, I'm always kind of interested in that. Now, if we're thinking about, let's call this new category maybe the thinkers. I think the the patron saint of that category for me is Paulo Freire, Brazilian educator, um, a genius in his own terms, and he defined, or for me, redefined education in a way that's spacious and helpful and actually liberating. And most of like what I bring to the program that we're doing together is that kind of coming from that
Mhm.
way. So I would say yes, Paulo Freire. I would say Richard Rohr that we mentioned recently. I would say yeah, Dr. King for sure. His work has been very influential to me. Um, let's say Cornel West, his work on what it means to be a black man, a philosopher, in America. I would say more recently, I have I I'm very interested in the topic of consciousness. So
Mm.
Philip Goff is like a physicist that kind of it's been very interesting to me to read, and that, or just talk like with the thinkers there. So this is kind of the heavyweight that I bring in that category. The second category might come as a surprise, but I think it has also shaped me, and I would say athletes. You know,
Mm.
more particularly, like more specifically, martial artists. So there's something about being like a martial artist that shapes your way of thinking about life, right? So for me, I would say, because I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, so Rickson Gracie is the guy for me, like that kind of, reigns in that category. But I would say Mike Tyson. I love the guy. I love like his complex character. I
Mm,
love, he has one of the best phrases that I've ever heard, and it's one of the most wise phrases I ever heard. It is like, well, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
mm, mm.
You know, I mean, it's a kind of wisdom right there, you know?
I love that. I love Mike Tyson wisdom. I'm here for it.
Yeah. And more recently, like Anderson Silva as well, another Brazilian that's fighter. And what I love about these people, all of them actually, is the complexities that they bring
Mm,
to bear in their own lives and their own bodies. And then the fourth group actually is artists. I think
mm,
I'm very attentive to their lives as well and the things that they put out there. So there are a couple of Brazilian hip hop artists that I follow like closely and the way they see life um and and kind of their art is really forming me and I think, people that might know better, Clark Terry is like a trumpet player, Wynton Marsalis, Michael Jackson,
mm.
Whitney Houston, you know, these people and Dave Matthews as well. I mean, Dave Matthews is like,
Wild card.
yeah, yeah. That's the one that people love and hate at the same time. Anyway, but what I love about all of these people and the way they have shaped my thinking is, well, first of all, they're all people that, for me at least, they communicate that they're 100% in.
Mm,
They're dedicated to their art. They're dedicated to their causes. So I think there's that what kind of communicates to me like, okay, this is a life worth living. It's a life that
mm,
you put yourself, fully in. But also the complexities, as I mentioned, like they're not perfect. They're not the good guys only. They have their crisis, and I think I can just relate to that. I'm not good most of the time. Maybe most of the time, but not all the time. So I feel like there's some kind of humanity there that has shaped my thinking, and I do believe that observing these people in their art and craft shapes our thinking more than we sometimes acknowledge.
mhm,
Usually
mhm.
we think about the people that we read,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
people that are writing stuff, to communicate teaching, but I think these people have taught me. Yeah.
Mm. I love that, and I love just sort of the instructive nature of the way you did that, and for those of us listening to think about, okay, well, who's informed us? And
Yeah.
using some of the categories that Gustavo offered, I also think about like chefs is one of mine. Like, whose food have I
Ooh.
eaten from my grandma to my favorite restaurant in
Wow, there you go.
Los Angeles? Just, I mean, you could go a lot of directions, but
Yeah.
really to just paint the tapestry. Okay, final question.
Uh-huh.
It has been I love talking to you. We could talk all day, but I want for those who are listening who want like to figure out where they can learn more of your wisdom and get in touch, like where can we find you online or
Hmm.
otherwise?
For now, yeah, LinkedIn, that's where I am. So maybe finding me there and send me a message. That would be great. I love talking to people. I would work with freely anyone who's willing to work with me.
Mm,
I enjoy connecting, and I can promise like full attention. I
mm,
think that's something that I um, I am proud of offering in this world that seems so fragmented and so quick and so based on scale.
mm.
I am not interested in scaling anything at this point. So,
I love that right there. That is a mic drop moment. Not interested in scaling. And I love it about you, the depth, the presence, the wisdom, the relational space that you hold for people. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Gustavo.
mm, thank you, Michaela. You are as well a person for me that has that spaciousness in you. So I am also very appreciative of our friendship and the work we do together. But like, I really love kind of being with you and hanging out with you because I feel that space as well. So thank you for
Mm,
inviting me.
yeah, of course.
Thank you for tuning in to The Hidden Work of Leadership. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it insightful. The Hidden Work of Leadership is brought to you by the Max Dupree Center for Leadership at Fuller Seminary, where we envision a world in which leaders across industries and seasons of life are deeply formed as the people of God so that they might seek the very best for the people and systems entrusted to their care. Our episodes are produced by Justin Heap, who ensures our engineering and editing is engaging and sounds just right. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing us on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. You can also follow the Dupree Center on LinkedIn and Instagram for updates and behind-the-scenes content. For more information about today's episode and access to additional resources, visit our website at dupree.org. That's DEPREE.org. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Hidden Work of Leadership.